Order. Will the Committee of Supply please come to order? This section of the Committee of Supply will now consider the estimates of the Department of Advanced Education, Skills, and Immigration. Does the Honourable Minister have an opening statement?
I do, Mr. Chair.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning. I'm pleased to be here today to discuss the Budget 2022 as it relates to the Department of Advanced Education, Skills, and Immigration. I'd like to, first of all, before I begin my opening remarks, to let you know that I have with me here for Committee of Supply, Eric Charon, my Deputy Minister for Advanced Education, Skills, and Immigration, Melissa Ballantyne, the Assistant Deputy Minister of Finance and Corporate Services, Carmel Chartrand, Assistant Deputy Minister, Immigration Pathways Division, and Mr. Joel Funk, Assistant Deputy Minister for Advanced Education Division. I'd like to take this opportunity to reiterate that Russia's unprovoked attack on Ukraine is tragic, and our government condemns the events taking place right now. Our Ukraine task force continues to work collaboratively with our partners to ensure we are welcoming and supporting Ukrainian citizens as they face this humanitarian crisis. As part of our support, we have expedited applications and waived the $500 Manitoba Provincial Nominee Program application fee for citizens applying from Ukraine. Up to 300 Ukrainian refugees will have arrived. Actually, this past Monday in Manitoba. It was one of the first of 3 federally arranged chartered flights. The Ukrainian community, in partnership with governments, is providing much needed supplies and services to help these newcomers settle and adjust. We will continue to welcome Ukrainians and provide support through the reception center, including intake services to determine needs, temporary accommodations, and meals for those without Manitoba connections, and orientation and referral services through Manitoba Start. We will continue these efforts and work closely with Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada to implement enhanced measures for Ukrainian citizens that will facilitate the movement of Ukrainians who want to leave their country temporarily or permanently. The pandemic has changed our world and economy in ways that we could not have imagined. Advanced education, skills, and immigration continues to adapt, and through our collaborative approach with our post-secondary industry, Indigenous, and immigration partners, we will recover together. Our skills, talent, and knowledge strategy is foundational for helping create the pathway to employment and better economic opportunities for Manitobans. Significant work is underway on many of the targeted actions under the 4 pillars to build stronger partnerships between post-secondary institutions, immigration, training, and employment services, and labor market needs. Under Pillar 2 of the strategy, we are increasing partnerships between post-secondary institutions and industry to align education and training to labor market needs and help students succeed now and in the future. This will ensure students gain the right skills and competencies to thrive, increase Manitoba's participation rate in post-secondary education, and help all students succeed. This includes the recently announced Post-Secondary Accountability Framework, which will build on post-secondary accountability to encourage stronger outcomes for students while addressing the recommendations, including in the Auditor General's independent audit report, audit of the oversight of post-secondary institutions. The framework is a significant step in the government's implementation of Manitoba's skills, talent, and knowledge strategy, and will ensure Manitoba's education and skills training systems are building the solid foundation on which to form our future workforce. I'd like to thank all of our dedicated frontline workers who have worked tirelessly over the last 2 years. We know that there are nursing shortages globally and across Canada. In partnership with our post-secondary institutions, we are moving forward with the commitment to add a total of 400 new nursing training seats in Manitoba to help fill the identified nursing vacancy gap. As part of a multi-phase plan that started in 2021-22, Budget 2022 provides funding for up to 259 seats to increase the supply of nurses into the Manitoba workforce. Attracting and retaining skilled workers, business investors, and international students while also ensuring newcomers can work in their regulated profession is a key theme as the fourth pillar under the skills, talent, and knowledge strategy. And a core focus for our department, immigration will play a critical role in Manitoba's post-secondary economic recovery. Immigration contributes to strong communities and a strong economy. Our Manitoba Provincial Nominee Program is well renowned and brings thousands of qualified skilled workers to Manitoba each year. The newly established Immigration Advisory Council is reviewing the entire continuum of immigration to provide recommendations to strengthen Manitoba's immigration programs, building on the success of our provincial nominee program. The focus of the expert panel will build on promotion to attract and recruit more immigrants and business investors to the province, help streamline the Manitoba Provincial Nominee Program by settling the right balance between our regional labor market, economic development, and community needs, and foster Manitoba's settlement and integration programs and services, as well as foreign credential recognition and bolster immigration retention. I was pleased to see the federal 2022 budget included new commitments and supports for immigration and refugee initiatives. This includes support for the processing and settlement of new permanent residents and facilitation of the timely and efficient entry of a growing number of visitors, workers, and students. However, we will continue to advocate with the federal government to expand our annual immigration levels with the aim of welcoming more new Manitobans to contribute to the growth and prosperity of our province. We will welcome and encourage more immigrants to come to Manitoba, the home of hope, where they can enjoy the job opportunities our provinces can offer. This year, we will invest more than $5 million in the Newcomer Integration Support Program to contribute to the network of services that help connect newcomers to our communities and find good jobs. The department continues to promote access to advanced education opportunities for Manitobans through strong, competitive post-secondary institutions with programming that supports successful outcomes for students. As the pandemic eases into an endemic, economic recovery and growth remains a top priority. Under pillar of the skills, talent, and knowledge strategy, the department will continue to work closely with post-secondary institutions and employers to anticipate the skills needed for the future, so Manitobans can gain the right skills to succeed and build their careers here at home. Budget 2022 provides more than $700 million to post-secondary institutions, plus additional funds to support priority maintenance to their facilities. We remain committed to supporting students so they can pursue and complete a post-secondary education. Manitoba is a place of innovation, and many Manitobans have a successful entrepreneurial spirit. We want to do more to leverage our creativity and ingenuity in post-secondary systems to assist in recovery, spur economic growth, innovation, and research breakthroughs. Under Pillar 3 of the Skills, Talent, and Knowledge strategy, we will continue to strengthen the collaboration between academia and industry to support research and develop and foster entrepreneurial and innovative skills. Ensuring access to higher education is foundational to Manitoba's skills, talent, and knowledge strategy. Loans, scholarships, and bursaries allow more students to access and complete quality post-secondary education. The department continues to seek opportunities to improve student access to education and training. Our programs and financial supports assist students and adult learners pursue educational pathways to develop the skills needed to contribute to a high quality of life in Manitoba. The Manitoba Bursary provides eligible students with upfront, non-repayable bursary to assist them with costs of their education. Students are automatically considered for these programs when they submit their application for Manitoba and Canada student loans, reducing red tape for students. Last year, the program increased its budget to almost $17.3 million, benefiting over 11,000 students, including over 1,500 Indigenous students. This year, we have increased the budget to $21.1 million and anticipate it'll even benefit more students. We will continue to work in partnership with Indigenous communities. Our support to adult learning and literacy programs also helps Manitobans pursue education. Budget 2022 provides for $20.3 million to continue our support for adult learning centers and literacy and agencies throughout Manitoba. As we move forward with our post-pandemic recovery, we remain committed to listening to our stakeholders to ensure we are creating opportunities to build the skills and talent needed for a stronger economy and brighter, more prosperous future for all
The
Manitobans.
minister's time has expired, and we thank the Minister for Advanced Education, Skills, and Immigration for those comments. Does the critic from the opposition, official opposition, have an opening statement? The honourable member for St. Patel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to begin by welcoming all the new immigrants who have made their way to Manitoba, whether it's been over the past year or more recently, in this particular, those immigrants who arrived here from Ukraine. We understand the difficult struggle that has been dealing with the war-torn nation as a result of the violent attacks by Putin's regime. We are so thankful that you are here in Manitoba, and we hope to be able to welcome you into our community. And I think that in that welcoming, we also recognize that the government here has a lot more responsibility and a lot more that it could be doing to support new immigrants into Manitoba. Namely, we could be seeing more supports for settlement services, ensuring that there are settlement service workers available to assist new and landed immigrants in our province. And additionally, we could also see and also call for and continue to call for additional supports for those educated professionals from outside of this country to be able to find a pathway for their skills to be used and for them to continue in their profession right here in Manitoba, and have some of those barriers that they may face being an internationally educated professional, for them to find a career here using the skills and knowledge that they've already built up. So we call on the government to do more to break those barriers down and find opportunities for those international educated professionals. And as part of that, we see as part of that plan to support newcomers, but also to support Manitobans are here. There is a gross under-resourced adult education system that we have in Manitoba, and a huge need to improve that system, to have it resourced and have it available for people in Manitoba to educate themselves, to get the literacy skills that they need to find work and find success in Manitoba, and for them to get their education that they need, whether that's just getting up to that grade 12 level through an adult education system that has spaces available for those who want to take those courses at an affordable rate, that has resources attached to it that will actually support individual success. And there's models out there that we can look to, that we can use in Manitoba, models that would encompass childcare programs for single parents or parents who need childcare in order to get educated, ones that will support them through transportation to get to classes, or other needs that would allow them to be successful in getting an education and allow them to be more fully participant in our economy. Additionally, we've seen great upheaval in our post-secondary system, upheaval that was essentially caused by this government's actions. We saw a massive strike, longest strike in University of Manitoba's history this past year. And that's because this government's interference into the labor negotiations, saying that wages had to be at a certain level, and it prevented a proper, free, and fair negotiation. And this is a huge issue, not just for the faculty that were on strike, but for the thousands of students in Manitoba that were affected, and the thousands of potential students that thought or thinking about education. Maybe they're in high school and looking at the choices that they're going to make for their post-secondary institution, when they see that the government doesn't value post-secondary education in this province, it's going to make their choice to leave a little bit more easier. So it's such a misguided step to attempt to save some money by interfering in negotiation, but in fact causing so much more pain and economic depression in our province that it's, we call on the government to take a different course. We're happy that there is a resolution in that strike, but we continue to see difficult times for students with continued and ever increasing at a rapid rate tuition and student fees. And this tuition increase is mounted on the fact that there hasn't been a government grant to post-secondary institutions that would match. In fact, we've seen quite the opposite. That grant that's given from the government to post-secondary has been flat or been decreased over the last few years under this PC government. And then the burden of that extra cost has been placed on the backs of students, with their increase raising their tuition increase going in many cases to near a 50-50 split of funding. Nearly half of the funding for some institutions. Very soon, it'll be almost half of the funding for UW, for instance, will be paid for based on the tuition of their students. And that wasn't the case even just 6 years ago. And when we see an economy where we have a low and stagnant minimum wage because of this government's choice, where we see high inflation, challenges for young people to get work or high-paying jobs, and at the same time we see ever increasing and rapidly increasing tuition, it makes it extremely difficult for a young person to see themselves going into university and being successful without taking an extremely large debt. And that is a huge problem onto the opportunities that a young person might face as they're trying to educate themselves and get into our economy and our labor force in Manitoba. We also have seen the upheaval that the government's caused in our post-secondary system through the issues that people have had accessing student aid. And some students who qualified and ought to have received their student aid simply not get it because of this government's failure to deliver on them receiving student aid. We've also seen this government propose and basically inflict an unwanted, unneeded, and frankly damaging proposal for performance-based funding for our post-secondary institutions. In addition, the idea of a differential tuition where you would pay different levels of tuition based on the type of program that you're taking. And these ideas have failed in other jurisdictions. It's unwanted, uncalled for by administration, by faculty, by students, and it serves no purpose to benefit institutions in Manitoba. So I call again on the government to revise this ill-thought plan and actually listen to the needs and the items that students are calling for to actually make post-secondary institutions a better place. And so, Mr. Chair, I'll leave my opening comments there. But again, I want to thank the staff in the department for the work they've done over the year. But I also want to recognize that we call on this government to do so much more by students, by faculty, by administrations, by the newcomer immigrants who are landing here in Manitoba, because we know that we need all of them in order for us to build a better and brighter Manitoba. Thank you.
We thank the critic for the official opposition for those opening comments. Under Manitoba practice, debate on the minister's salary is the last item considered for a department on the Committee of Supply. Accordingly, we shall now defer consideration of line item 44.1 bracket A contained in resolution 44.1. And according to our Rule 77 bracket 16, during the consideration of departmental estimates, questioning for each department shall proceed in a global manner with questions put separately on all resolutions once the official opposition critic indicates that questioning has concluded. The floor is now open for questions. The Honourable Member for St. Vital.
Thank you. Can the minister undertake to give a list of all technical appointments in the department, including names and titles, and as well give an organizational chart that lists all employees and program areas?
The Honourable Minister.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. And to answer the question from my critic, the technical staff, all I have is my special assistant, Mr. Sharma, and the organization structure is actually listed on page 12 of the budget 2022 supplement to the estimates of expenditure.
The Honourable Member for St. Vital.
Thank you. I also was asking the minister if he can undertake to provide an organizational chart that lists the programs in the last question. And I was also wondering if the minister could provide a current list of vacancies in the department.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As I indicated in my response, the critic can go to page 12 of the supplement to the estimate of expenditure. However, I will read to him some of the organizational structure in this with this question. We have executive support, which oversees the development and implementation of departmental policies and programs that are designed to achieve the goals set out in the department's mandate. We have the finance and corporate services that provides corporate leadership and coordination of strategic initiatives, financial management, legislative and regulatory development, and information technology services to support the department and related agencies in achieving their mandates. I'll let them note that corporate services, including financial services, are a shared service provider to economic development, investment, and trade, and advanced education, skills, and immigration. There is also the policy and performance, which it contributes to the coordinated and effective delivery of the department's mandate through policy expertise and data and analytics. The division is also responsible for leading Manitoba's engagement, intergovernmental forums related to advanced education, adult learning, and immigration. As well as advanced education provides direction, funding, and or regulatory oversight to Manitoba's publicly funded university colleges, private religious institutions, private vocational institutions, and apprenticeship to ensure positive outcomes for students, communities, and the economy. The division is responsible for ensuring a sustainable, fiscally responsible an accountable post-secondary education system that delivers programs aligned with labor market needs. The Student Access and Success Division helps remove barriers to student success, including financial and skill barriers, and promotes access to advanced education. The division is responsible for ensuring programs and financial supports are also available to help students and adult learners pursue educational pathways to develop the skills needs to participate fully in the community and contribute to a growing economy. The Immigration Pathways Division contributes to economic growth and strong communities through the Manitoba Provincial Nominee Program and working with partners to promote the province as a destination of choice for international talent to study, work, and live. The division also works with regulators through the Fair Registration Practices Office to reduce barriers to employment. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
The honourable member for St. Vital.
Can the minister state how many vacancies there are currently in the department?
The honourable minister.
Mr. Chair, as of the end of February, we had 39 vacancies. However, there is actually 10 in the process in March and April.
The honourable member for St. Vital.
Just want to clarify, you said there are 10 in the process of being hired. Is that right?
The honourable minister. The honourable minister.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There is 12 in active recruitment as we speak.
The honourable member for St. Vital.
Thank you very much, Minister. I appreciate that information. Just looking into the supplement of estimates expenditure book, on page 29, it goes through the department expenditures. I was wondering, in the expense type categorized other expenditures, the amount is 4.7 million basically, and it was decreased from 6.5 in the previous year. I wonder if the minister can explain and detail what is considered other expenditures and why it has decreased from last year to this year.
The honourable minister.
I want to thank the critic for the question in terms of with respect to other expenditures and the reason why there's a decrease. The other expenditures include day-to-day operations of the offices across the department. And there is a one-time reduction because due to the IT scoping costs that we have within our department. IT scoping costs.
The honorable member for St. Vital.
So the IT costs were in the 2021-22 year, and now that system is implemented, is that right? And no, it's no longer needed. Those costs are no longer incurred for this coming year. Can you just provide more clarity on what that IT system was and what department it's in?
The honorable minister.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The IT scoping cost for 2021-22 was scoping out the integration of the student IT program with the federal program, so the loan systems. And in 2022-23, we moved into implementing that, which is capitalized. So we've, in this case, reduced the administrative cost, administrative burden on students. So before, it was a 1 student to 2 loan model, which we're now going to a 1 student to 1 loan model, similar to other provinces.
The honorable member for St. Vital.
I thank the minister for his question, for his response, and I wanted to ask, speaking of that student aid system and merging it with the federal program, how much money does the minister anticipate would be saved by this integration? And will that money be reinvested back to benefit students?
The honorable minister, and I just remind the minister, just if you're waving, just wave your hand a little higher, because from the screen I'm seeing, there we go. That's great. Thank you. The honorable minister.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I saw that pensive look on your face, so I apologize. I'll put my hand up higher. So the 1 student, 1 loan model that we're going into is going to reduce the administrative burden on the student. It's going to save time and effort on both the student and our staff. So it'll create a win-win for both parties and ultimately the province of Manitoba, because we're going to a model of convenience for the student.
The honorable member for St. Vital.
Thank you. I thank the minister for the clarity on that. It'll save the effort for students and for the department. In saving effort for the department, it must also have some sort of cost benefit. So I'm wondering if the minister can outline what is this financial savings from this integration? And is there a plan to use that financial savings to reinvest to benefit students in another way?
Thank you, the Honorable Minister.
I'm glad you saw my hand. That was very high enough there, Mr. Chair. So, well, it's going to save time and effort, not only for the students, but for the staff, and the staff will be able to have other, they can address other priorities. And in this case, a lot of these services will be a lot of the frontline services that students require, because we have a lot of students that require these services and supports. And as I've always said, anytime that we can enhance, improve and enhance government services, this is one of them. So with that one student, one loan approach that we are taking, it'll be convenient for both parties, and it'll definitely be useful for the staff department to address other issues that students will require.
The Honorable Member for St. Vital.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I guess I'm hearing from the minister that there's no set financial line item where there's a benefit gain because of this integration system. It's more just in terms of staff time. Staff will, I guess, we assume the staff will now reinvest their time into benefiting frontline needs of students in terms of an actual line item. We're saving this much dollars in the department. If I can infer, that's what the minister's saying as well. I want to ask again on this issue, from the student's perspective, will there be a clear, detailed breakdown in terms of when they receive their monthly billing for the loans, as to what is part of the National Student Loan Services and what is the Manitoba portion, so that they can clearly identify whether it's from the federal or from the province?
The Honorable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Chair. In terms of the clear monthly breakdown, Canada, in this case, will be handling all the communications in terms of the federal support and provincial support. However, this will, as I've said before, it'll be a convenience for the student to have a one student, one loan approach system when it comes to student aid. Our government is committed to supporting these students, in terms of post-secondary education costs. We're taking immediate action to ensure students' personal information is going to be safe. We recognize that in-person service is valued, and that's why the staff will have that much more time with this one student, one loan system, in order to keep students and staff members working together in a more convenient way, so that they can be serviced more efficiently. We continue to promote access to advanced education opportunities for Manitobans through strong competitive post-secondary institutions providing the quality educations that they come to expect. So, and we're going to continue to also invest in $1 billion each year in post-secondary education. These institutions in Manitoba have adapted throughout the pandemic to ensure that faculty, staff, and students will remain safe, and they've adjusted accordingly, while enhancing also mental health supports, because that's very important, especially during these past 2 years, and counseling services. In my conversations with the PSI presidents, they continue to provide as much guidance and engagement with the students. I know that my department is routinely communicating with the PSI leaders because we have to adjust accordingly in the type of world we live in. We've learned a lot from the 2 years of the pandemic that we've had. We know that we are ultimately getting to that endemic, and we just want to ensure that the student aid aspect of the division goes to this one student, one loan system, which will convenient our post-secondary students across our province. It'll, as I said, free up the time for our staff, the hardworking staff that we have in student aid. It'll also give them time to allow them to meet and discuss within the department on how we can continually improve addressing student aid. How can we give those student aid in a timely manner? We always have to reevaluate what we can do with our programs and services. Student aid is doing that. They're continuing to do that. We are listening to stakeholders. We are listening to stakeholders in terms of improving these services. And the best stakeholders to discuss this with is when the student aid staff have these one-on-one engagements when they're servicing these students, because we learn always in terms of when they are inconvenienced. That does happen. This is not a perfect world, but that's why we're always trying to improve and enhance the system, and in this case through a one student, one loan system service for students. So thank you, Mr. Chair, for the question from the critic.
The honourable member for St. Patel.
Thank you. I thank the minister for his response to that. The reason I'm asking about that monthly breakdown between provincial and federal is because, as the minister knows, the Manitoba student aid is interest-free, whereas there's interest on the federal one, it's not interest-free. So I want to know if that's going to be clearly identified to the students when they're making those payments, so that they understand that the Manitoba program is continuing to remain interest-free. And if it's not, I hope the minister can clarify that. So I want to know if that breakdown is going to be able to show the difference between federal and province, if that's going to be clear after this merger, and clearly stated that one is continuing to remain interest-free and the other is, as it has interest associated with it. And whether the minister will again commit to saying that the Manitoba student aid will continue to remain interest-free.
The honourable minister.
Yes, I want to thank the critic for the question. And yes, the Manitoba program has been interest-free. And with this one student, one loan program, the Canada student portion, the student aid portion, he is indeed correct with his statements. And that's why we are going to go with the program of this one student, one loan program. So it's convenient and reduces the administrative burden on the student, will give more time for the staff to focus on other frontline services for students that are required. As we know, as I've said, we have many, many students who depend on student aid. We want to ensure as a province, as a government, to ensure that we have these aids in place for these students, because we know that post-secondary education is one of the variables, is part of the variables to ensure that we have a successful and growing economy, because we know that it is a crucial enabler of the economy. And that's why student aid, in terms of this one student, one loan process, is there for the student.
The Honourable Member for St. Vital.
Thank you, Minister, for the clarity on that, that the Manitoba portion will remain interest-free. The federal program will still continue to have interest. And so just because, as you mentioned, the communications, I think, as you said, for the monthly billing will be administered by the federal government. I think that's what you mentioned. So to answer this question, whether there'll be clarity between the federal and the provincial portions of it, is that a question I need to ask of the federal minister?
The Honourable Minister.
Chair, I know student aid works really closely with the federal government. They actually have monthly meetings with them. Last year, the department, actually in 2020-21, dispersed approximately $254 million on behalf of the Manitoba Student Aid Program, so over 17,000 students in provincial and federal student loans, grants, and bursaries. We increased the Manitoba bursary budget to $21.1 million, as is anticipated to benefit even more students. We also invested $15 million in the Manitoba Scholarship and Bursary Initiative, and with the support of fundraising, this provided a record level of $33 million to nearly 22,500 students. Back to the last question, to be fair to my critic, the students will see on their portal page the breakdown between the federal and Manitoba loans. So student aid, back to his question originally, has a close relationship with the federal government. They have monthly meetings with the other jurisdictions as well on how to improve and enhance services with student aid. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
The Honourable Member for St. Vital.
I wanted to ask the minister, I know that there are still some students, I believe, who are waiting for their financial aid since the winter term because of technical difficulties that were that they were having with administering the figures, the amounts for students. What will this merger have on those students who might still be waiting for some of the student loan from the winter term?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Chair, we know that Manitoba Student Aid has experienced some technical difficulties with one of its IT platforms, and we had the similar type of issues back in December with the provincial and federal student aid systems experiencing a delay in confirming the enrollment of students with their schools. We understand the important role that Manitoba Student Aid plays in supporting post-secondary students, and that is why our government has invested more than $254 million to over 17,000 students in Manitoba. We're going to continue to invest in the post-secondary institution to support our students And but that is noted. We know that we have to be up to date when it comes to these platforms. Last year, Student Aid processed over 22,000 student aid applications as well, just to let the member know. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
The honorable member for St. Vital.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the minister's comments, and I recognize and believe his sincerity with trying to resolve the issue with student aid. I would like to know if the minister can provide clarity on exactly how many students are still experiencing issues and without the full amount of their owed student aid as a result of this problem right now, and if any of those students would have issues during the merger to the federal program, the one loan, one student program.
The honorable minister.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'm glad that the critic is aware and is understandable that there have been delays because of the IT system technical difficulties that we've had. To answer his question, as of April 29th, there were 238 students still waiting. But what I can tell him is that they are working on it to ensure that these students will get their student data as quickly as possible. But as I've said, we've invested more than $254 million to over 17,000 students in Manitoba, and we're very cognizant of the issues that are happening. But I know that my department is working hard to ensure they expedite the services that they can, so that we can ensure that these students get their student data as quickly as possible.
The honorable member for St. Vital.
I thank the minister for that response. I'm wondering, can you provide is there an estimated, or have the IT system provided a time when they think that would be fixed? I know a lot of times with programs, they can say, oh, we'll get this fixed by a certain date. They're working towards a certain target date. Is the minister aware of when he thinks these issues will be fixed for the 238 students that he mentioned?
The honorable minister.
Okay, I thought I put my hand too fast and I went down, and I didn't know if you saw that, Mr. Chair. So I apologize. I'll put up extra slower. So I guess it's Friday. I guess I'm just pretty excited. It's the end of the week, but I'm here to answer the questions from the critic. I just want to let them know that, as I said, last year, student aid processed over 22,000 student aid applications. We know that there's 238 students that are waiting. That's 1% of the total. However, we know that every student is important, and he can be rest assured, and the students can be rest assured that student aid, the department, is working every day with the IT staff to get that system going. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I would just say that I appreciate the member or the minister for his enthusiasm in raising his hand. I don't have to have an apology for that. The honorable member for St. Vital.
Thank you. So I just want to clarify, the minister doesn't have a date as to when he thinks the issue will be resolved for the 238 students, or can he provide any more clarity on that?
The honorable minister.
As a minister for the department, and I can assure you that this is very, very important because we don't want to leave any student behind when it comes to their aid. I know that the student aid is working 24/7, 7 days a week to get that system up and running. What I can assure them that we are working as as with a sense of urgency to get that, to get that IT support there for the students, for their student aid. So we are moving with a sense of urgency on that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
The honorable member for St. Vital.
Thank you. Moving on, away from student aid questions and moving over to the government's allotment for expenditures this year. I'm wondering if the government has made a provision in this year's budget to account for the $19 million court judgment ordered as a result of the University of Manitoba strike. If there's a line item incorporated in the budget of the department to pay for that $19 million judgment.
The honorable minister.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As the member is aware, I believe he was in the House when this question was answered. When he actually asked a question, I mean, he can go to answer, I believe, that when it comes to this issue, we, like everyone else, take legal advice. And we listen to that legal advice just like the other parties have in this case. So we are seeking further clarity, and we respect the integrity of the court's process to now, and to let that unfold and respect the legal process. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
The honorable member for St. Vital.
So in other words, since the minister and the government is appealing the decision, there's no need to budget for that $19 million. I suppose that means that they're assuming that they will win the appeal and not have to pay the $19 million as a result of the strike of U of M. That's what I'm inferring by the minister's comments. So I suppose if the ruling doesn't come in the government's failure, there's going to be an additional $19 million of expense coming out of the department. If that does happen, has the minister put any thoughts or made a plan as to where that $19 million is going to come from if it isn't already budgeted?
The honorable minister.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As my critic knows, with respect to budget and estimates, we do plan accordingly. But in this case, like everyone else, we will take the legal advice as we're entitled to. And just like the other parties have in this case, we're going to be seeking further clarity. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
The honorable member for St. Vital.
So if I just get this picture right, the actions of the government caused the strike at U of M. They went to trial and lost in trial, and now have to pay $19 million back to the Faculty Association. They appeal that ruling, and instead of planning to actually pay the $19 million, they're trying to appeal it and fight that in court, but yet have no contingency if they do end up having to pay that, in which case they're likely going to have to take it or cut it from another part or portion of the department. Seems curious that that's the management strategy the minister is taking, because it seems like there's a much cleaner, smoother path that would be available to him, instead of taking such one that would put such pressure on the own department to find $19 million halfway through a fiscal year. If the ruling comes out not in the government's favor, in the favor of the faculty, it seems like there's a lot of expense going into the court trial in the first place. And so I'd like to ask the minister that. How much money has they spent on the court case already, and how much does he anticipate will be spent as a result of this appeal and any further ongoing process?
The Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I know that the member, is the opposition have legal experts within that side of the opposition. However, as they are aware as well, that we have to take legal advice, and we want to listen to that legal advice, just like other parties have in this case. So we're going to respect the process. What we're also going to do is we're going to, as we always have with the department, we're going to adjust accordingly. We're going to adjust accordingly in terms of how we operate things, because, just to let the critic know, when I did take over back in the last part of January, part of the plan was not having a war, a crisis in Ukraine. We had to adjust accordingly, and we will adjust accordingly in terms of the other divisions, and we will do what's best for the province and for Manitoba. I just want to remind the member that he voted against more than $1 billion for post-secondary education. He voted against the $33 million in the Manitoba Bursary program that was in budget 2022. He voted against the $19.3 million to expand the nursing seat commitment. He talks about newcomer supports, but he voted against the $5.1 million in newcomer support. He talks about adult education literacy. He voted against more than $20.3 million for the adult literacy program. And he's voted against much needed tax relief for our students and newcomers to make life more affordable. We will adjust accordingly. We will make life more affordable for Manitobans. And, we will respect the process. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
The Honorable Member for St. Vital.
Call back the cavalry after this.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to ask the Minister a little bit about international students, and if you can just provide maybe a total of enrollment in Manitoba of international students for 2021-22, and what he anticipates the enrollment of international students would be for 2022-2023.
The Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We know that international students is very important for our province, as we want them to study and stay here in our province. And for 2021, we just had just under 11,000 international students come to the province of Manitoba to study. We don't have a figure yet in terms of 2022, 2023, because that has yet to be started in terms of the total to get that number. But once that year is over, we can definitely get him the number once that time arrives. But when it comes to international students, I must say, being the MLA for Waverley, we have a lot of newcomers, and we are in close proximity of the University of Manitoba. And I've also visited a number of post-secondary institutions such as the Assiniboine Community College. When I walk into the facilities, the first thing I notice right away is the many international students that are there. The critic and we are people of color. So right away, we see these folks in these post-secondary institutions. And there are many from places like India, Bangladesh, Nigeria. We both know that, when we did watch the news in terms of the crisis in Ukraine, that there was a mass exodus of international students from Nigeria, from India, who were having issues when they were crossing the border. And we both agree that, they were treated in a different manner, sort of say. I guess that's what the reports had said. But what I can tell you is I've always wondered myself, why do international students come to our province? How did a student from India, Bangladesh, Nigeria, China choose Manitoba? Why? Why Winnipeg, Manitoba of all places, right? And what I can tell you very proudly as the Minister for Advanced Education is that they've told me, Minister, it's because of the low tuition cost, one of the lowest tuition costs that we have in Western Canada. That's one thing that I'm very happy and proud to hear when I talk with international students and I see their enthusiasm, their excitement in studying here, in staying here, in contributing to our economy. Because I've never experienced what they're going through. I mean, it's very, very admirable for a young individual coming from another country, going to a foreign land, in a different environment, different culture. But as we've always said, Manitoba is the home of hope. We are very welcoming. And sometimes I'll get a little bit emotional sometimes when I stop and think because, just this past Monday, we saw a bunch of Ukrainian citizens coming to our province who are very happy, feeling very welcomed. I think of all the plights and the struggles of immigrants when they come here. But international students choose to come to Manitoba because when I've talked to them, when you're at the grassroots level, when you go to these events or when you meet with them, they talk about how they're excited and how affordable our province is, how they're excited to tell their friends back home, you should come to Manitoba to study. We've had thousands of international students come to our province who are success stories of their own now by studying and staying here. And that's why I'm very proud to have former international students that are part of my Immigration Advisory Council. They bring a lot to the table here, and I'm very, very happy that our numbers are growing when it comes to that. And I'm excited to promote all the post-secondary institutions because of the wonderful programs that they have that will benefit international students. And we will continue to ensure that we promote the low tuition costs that we have here in Western Canada so that it will attract international students so that they can study and stay here in Manitoba. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
The Honourable Member for St. Vital.
Thank you. I appreciate the Minister's comments in regards to international students. It is very heartwarming to see international students come and settle in Manitoba, and I'm so grateful for them deciding to continue their journey in Manitoba. And what we want to do is make sure that they have the supports they need to not only choose to call Manitoba home and study here, but also to remain here and find jobs and be successful in Manitoba. And sadly, we see that there's barriers put up in their place, not only with a low minimum wage, so it's difficult for them to earn money while they're working here. Of course, as the minister knows, there's a cap on the number of hours that international students can work. So if their hourly wage is low, then it's going to make it very challenging for them to afford living in Manitoba. And additionally, a big concern for international students is their healthcare. And as the minister knows, prior to 2018, international students were part of the public healthcare system, and that was changed by the PC government. Is there a plan for the minister to reinstate international students onto the public healthcare plan as they were prior to 2018? Because this is something that international students have been very vocal in terms of an issue that they are looking to see from this provincial government.
The Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And yes, we are both in agreement for sure that international students are a very important part of the equation of economic success when it comes to the province of Manitoba, the home of hope. And that's why, they've had a lot of aspirations coming here and studying here. And as I've said before, when I do see them, I see them and I talk to them and I ask them, why did they come to Manitoba? And they tell me time and time again, it's because of the low tuition fees, one of the lowest tuition fees we have in Western Canada. We remain committed to supporting international students wanting to study and stay here in Manitoba. We benefit from the diverse perspectives of international students that brings to our classrooms and communities. You mentioned about the number of hours worked and all that stuff there. I must say, we have had some very fruitful conversations when it comes to my Immigration Advisory Council, because we've talked about, some of these issues when it comes to specifically international students. So I want to share that with the critic, because the critic knows that my door is always open when it comes to sharing ideas, brainstorming on how we can improve and enhance our province. He knows that once students arrive, and they continue to arrive in Manitoba with an estimated 12,500 students studying in our province as of 2021, the fall, we've added 27 of its public and private post-secondary institutions to the federal government's approved list of designated learning institutions. And these institutions meet all provincial and federal health requirements. He knows that when international students come here, they do have healthcare coverage. They're automatically enrolled once they're enrolled. They have healthcare coverage through the post-secondary institutions and the plans that each institution provides. So, but specifically when it comes to healthcare, we have talked with Share Health. We have talked to organizations, student organization, when it comes to this issue, that question, take note of that, and I'll take note of that. It should be directed to our health ministry, and we'll work together. I know that as the Minister of Advanced Education, Skills and Immigration, I am the bridge and gateway when it comes to post-secondary leaders and our students. And I am here at your service to communicate this message, because at the end of the day, and I say to my critic, we have the same goal. The same goal is, how do we make lives easier for our international students when they come here? Because also in my role as the Minister of Immigration, we want them not only to study here, but we want them to stay here, because we know as well that immigration is also a crucial enabler for the economy. Our economy is recovering, our economy continues to grow, and part of that equation is international students. They are already here. And that's why I was very happy that, last year, our Department of Immigration was able to process just under 63 applications through our provincial nominee program, the most ever during a pandemic, I may add, with some of these student groups. So, I'm here to listen. My door is always open, as the critic is aware. We have the same goal. We empathize with international students coming from these countries. Again, as I say, it's very admirable of them to study in another country, learning the culture, learning the environment that they're in, learning the new systems that they're in. But at the end of the day, our province wants to ensure that we take care of the international students when they come here to the province of Manitoba, not only to study, but to stay here. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
The honourable member for St. Vital.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There's been a lot that the minister covered there, so I have a few points to touch on. First, he said one of the great reasons that international students come here is because of the low tuition. Then why is the minister continuing to increase tuition at such a rapid rate? Doesn't that just make Manitoba less attractive to international students, who we ought to be encouraging, as the minister says, such a valuable asset for our province? Second, I believe the minister mentioned that there were about 12,500 international students in his last response. His response before that, he said that there were about 11,000. So I want to get clarity about how many international students are there in Manitoba now. 2 questions ago, you said 11,000. Last question, you said 12,500, I believe. If you could just provide some clarity on that. And then the other point is, for international student healthcare, you mentioned, speaking with the Minister of Health, the Minister of Health has consistently said that it needs to be the Minister of Advanced Education. We've had this shuffling back and forth between two ministers, and international students are being caught in the middle. They deserve so much better than to hear the Minister of Health say go to Minister of Advanced Education, and the Minister of Advanced Education say go to the Minister of Health. They deserve so much better than that. And so I asked the minister again, is he considering fully reinstating international students onto the public healthcare plan?
The honourable minister.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One thing that I can tell my critic is that our government is committed to having one of the lowest tuition fees in Western Canada. With respect to the numbers, the academic year for 2020-2021, there were 10,775 international students. For the fall of 2021, there was 12,000. And this year, the year has not been completed yet, so we don't have those numbers. But what I can tell the critic as well is that we are committed to improving programs and services, which includes international students in my department as well. As I've said, post-secondary is under my purview, and in this case, international students. And we will continue to communicate with the other departments with the issues that the critic is raising, because we have to work together in terms of making sound decisions that will ensure that we are improving those programs and services and benefits for those who come to study and stay in Manitoba. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
The honourable member for St. Patel.
In terms of operating funding, can the minister take me through how much operating funding is being provided by post-secondary institutions for the upcoming academic year? And can he express that in terms of percentages over last year?
The honourable minister.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to let my critic know that Budget 2022, the budget that he voted against, provides more than $700 million to post-secondary institutions, plus additional funds to support priority maintenance to their facilities. We remain committed to supporting students so that they can pursue and complete a post-secondary education. I also want him to know that part of that $700 million provided to post-secondary institutions also is directed towards the inter-provincial training agreements that we have as well. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
The honourable member for St. Patel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'll ask the minister, about that we've heard about a bit about the plans for differential tuition. We've heard some of that from some of our institutions. Can the minister, clearly outline for us what this plan looks like? What does this mean for institutions with programs that will see higher tuition? And has the government received any applications from post-secondary institutions regarding differential tuitions for programming?
The honourable minister.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As the member is aware, we have ongoing consultations, because we want to ensure Manitoba students have access to quality post-secondary education. And it's a top priority for our province. For the 2022-23 academic year, we know that tuition increases were kept to a maximum of 3.75% for universities and $250 per course for colleges, ensuring our post-secondary institutions remain competitive while providing the quality education Manitobans have come to expect. So, as I've said, we are consulting with our post-secondary partners, faculty associations, student associations, students, and other Manitobans Their input will provide invaluable information for the development of a new tuition and fees policy. We are also providing an opportunity for all Manitobans. We have provided, through consultation through HMB, which actually the survey actually recently closed on May 21st of this year, just a couple of days ago. We've received approximately 607 responses to date. So we look forward to working with our partners. My department's very, very enthusiastic to see those responses. Like I said, we look forward to working with our partners to develop a flexible and responsive policy that will ensure that quality post-secondary education remains accessible and affordable for Manitoba students, while also considering the balance between student affordability, institutional sustainability, and fiscal responsibility. We are also committed to ensuring Manitobans have access to higher education by providing student programs and financial supports. That's why, back to the one student, one loan initiative, will free up time for student aid to provide frontline services so that they can address the concerns that students may have, those other concerns that they may have. Our suite of programs include, as I said, Manitoba Student Aid, which provides interest-free student loans, the Manitoba Bursary Program, which provides upfront bursaries to Indigenous students and low-income students, and the Manitoba Scholarship and Bursary Initiative, which leverages institutional fundraising by providing matching provincial dollars for student awards. So I just want to let the critic be aware that we are consulting. HMB, as I said, the survey closed on May 21st, and we're looking forward to looking at those 607 responses to date. And we're going to continue to engage with our stakeholders. And as I said, the department is routinely in touch with the post-secondary institution presidents because, as I said, we have to adapt and change the ongoing environment, and things happen sometimes at a whim. But we're here as a department to ensure that we service them as best as we can. And as a minister, as a local MLA, I'm also their grassroots talking to students as well, getting their feedback and relaying it back here to the department as well. And as I said, I welcome the critic again to sit down together as we have in the past to listen to each other, to brainstorm some ideas, because at the end of the day, we want to do what's best for Manitobans, and in this case, students and our post-secondary institutions, which includes faculty associations and the employees that are gainfully employed at these respective institutions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
The honorable member for St. Vital.
Thank you. So I know it sounds like the planning is still ongoing for the government's proposal for differential tuitions. Nothing is set yet. It sounds like from the minister, they're still involved in consultation. I know the recent consultation that the government had with respect to this and differential tuition and performance-based funding included students, but did not include faculty. And I hope the minister would agree that I don't think that just this survey would be sufficient consultation for faculty who would be greatly impacted by performance-based funding and differential tuitions. So I want to know, how is the minister going to consult with faculty since they were not involved in consultation sessions I know he had a few months ago?
The Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just would like to comment that the critics' comments of information are misleading, because I can assure you that there have been letters sent to our stakeholders, which include our post-secondary partners, faculty associations, student associations, students, including Indigenous students. We are even waiting for written submissions until May 31st. So I don't know where the critic is getting his information from. Every stakeholder has been given the opportunity. We've advertised that on Engage MB. Every Manitoban has been given that opportunity. I think he is getting confused with a process that we have yet to start, and that is our post-secondary accountability framework, which will be commencing. But as I've told him that, you know what, my door is open if he wants to discuss issues. I want to just let him know that I've also met personally with Dr. Peter Miller of the University of Winnipeg Faculty Association. So, you know, I'm doing my part and constantly engaging with many stakeholders as much as we can. My department is doing, you know, doing their job in terms of reaching out to the stakeholders, as I've said, and they have till the end of May to submit a written submission. What I can tell you as well with respect to Dr. Peter Miller and the University of Winnipeg Faculty Association, that we've actually received a response from them as of yesterday. So, you know, as you can see, you know, the information that he provided was misleading, and the information that I'm providing is factual. And may I remind the member again that our post-secondary accountability framework has yet to be started, but we are looking forward to starting that process as well, because we know that you know, these processes are very important to ensure that we can improve and enhance the work of advanced education, so that we can service our post-secondary partners, faculty associations, student associations, students, our Indigenous community of students as best as we can, because we want to remain competitive while providing the quality educations Manitobans have come to expect. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
The Honorable Member for St. Vital.
So how will the government decide if differential tuition amounts are to be permitted in post-secondary institutions? Will it be conducting analysis into that process and how that program will work? I know the minister just mentioned the consultation, but I'm really talking about, will they be looking at models in other jurisdictions? And if so, which ones? Will they be doing analysis before applying such differential tuition fees in our system here in Manitoba?
The Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Developing a new post-secondary accountability framework is key. Is a key action under our skills, talent, and knowledge strategy, and I'm hoping that the member has read that document. It's a very informative document. The skills, talent, and knowledge strategy will ensure that our investment in post-secondary education is achieving the intended results. We know that universities and colleges have a role to play in shaping the new framework. They have direct influence in students achieving success and share our goals of enhancing accountability. Our post-secondary institutions have told us that they want to demonstrate how they're helping students succeed and will work with us as we move forward to improve outcomes over time. We have looked at models in other provinces like British Columbia, Ontario, Saskatchewan, and Alberta to inform this work, and will incorporate best practices from these jurisdictions while respecting the autonomy, size, and diversity of our colleges and universities. We're committed to consulting meaningfully with our post-secondary institution partners and the public, as I said, including our post-secondary institution leadership, board members, student associations, faculty associations, students, business and industry, and the broader public. The department will consult with stakeholders using various methods such as virtual events and online survey available, as we did with various programs that we would initiate through Engage MB. Response from stakeholders will help us better understand post-secondary priorities and public opinion relative to the possible contents of the new post-secondary accountability framework to inform its development. No decisions have been made about the framework at this time, as it is crucial, and these engagements result in an accurate reflection of the value that our advanced education system delivers now and how it might yet improve. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
The Honourable Member for St. Vital.
Thank you. So obviously the minister is looking at other jurisdictions. There's certain analysis that he's doing to provide evidence that these will be successful. And I'm speaking specifically around performance-based funding. What evidence does the minister have that he can provide for us that show that this strategy of performance-based funding would actually be successful here in Manitoba?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The introduction of the post-secondary accountability framework is consistent with calls in recent reviews by KPMG in 2017, the Manitoba College Education Review in 2018, and the Office of the Auditor General Manitoba in 2020 for improved provincial oversight and accountability of publicly funded universities and colleges. The reviews found that financial reporting, accountability processes, and governance frameworks were lacking in some form at various institutions. Feedback from our stakeholders will be used to develop and finalize the overall framework and propose performance metrics before we implement post-secondary accountability framework. So that is why, and we are, going to go through with this post-secondary accountability framework by getting the feedback. And as I said, through the skills, talent, and knowledge strategy, we are committed to improving our accountability system for post-secondary institutions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
The Honourable Member for St. Vital.
Thank you. There are a lot of ways that you can provide accountability through the system to meet some of the ways to strengthen the post-secondary system without going to a performance-based funding model. Has the minister looked at other ways of increasing accountability in the system without performance-based funding, or did he go directly to this approach? And what evidence does it really have that performance-based funding models would even work in Manitoba because they failed, quite frankly, in other jurisdictions.
The Honorable Minister.
Compare ourselves with other jurisdictions. I'm looking forward in the beginning of July, I believe, to meet with other counterparts in the ministry that I represent. It's always good to compare ideas. And that's why, the introduction of this post-secondary accountability framework, again, where no decisions have been made, is consistent with the calls we've had in recent reviews by KPMG, by the Manitoba College Education Review, and the Office of Auditor General for improved provincial oversight and accountability of public funded universities and colleges. It's going to be great to get feedback from our post-secondary institutions and all stakeholders involved, because at the end of the day, we want to ensure that, again, we want to improve the accountability system for our post-secondary institutions. We want to ensure that at the end of the day, the students have the best quality education they can have at an affordable cost. And we, as a government, remain committed to that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
The Honorable Member for St. Vital.
The minister's plans to implement differential tuition fees and also performance-based funding. Which school year does the minister anticipate those plans to be concluded and actually be implemented in Manitoba? Which school year would these plans take effect for?
The Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As I've said, we are going through the process, and no final decisions have been made yet because we still have to go through the process, and I'm sure that my critic can appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
The Honorable Member for St. Vital.
Thank you. So the 2022-2023 school year is just about to start in a few months from now, September. So it'd be certainly too early for that to be implemented for this coming September start of school year. Earliest would be the 2023-2024 school year. Is that the window that the minister is looking at, the 2023-2024 school year for these plans to take effect?
The Honorable Minister.
The member is incorrect. My critic is incorrect in terms of the 2022-23 year. It wouldn't be implemented that quickly. However, because of the complexities in terms of the process in getting that feedback, because we know that the feedback that we're going to receive from some of these stakeholders is going to be there's going to be some differences. But at the end of the day, the solutions will be ultimately on how to ensure that we have accountability from these post-secondary institutions. So in terms of a time frame, I can tell you right now, again, no decisions have been made because we have to ensure that we get the proper feedback and proper information from those stakeholders in terms of having these measures in place when it comes to accountability, when it comes to post-secondary accountability in terms of this framework. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
The Honorable Member for St. Vital.
Thank you. So I thank the minister for that. I think we were both suggesting the same thing, that the 2022-2023 school year would be too soon, that the earliest, and I think this is probably what I think, rightfully the faculty and students are interested to see what, their future education is going to look like. So I think it's wise to, give them a heads up and say, if a big change like this is going to be happening. And I think the minister mentioned, this is really a matter of how we're going to do it, because ministers and the department really seems set on this is the approach they're going to be bringing in. Performance-based funding, differential tuition fees. It's just a matter of how they do it, okay? So I think that's, if I'm hearing you correctly, and it sounds like the earliest that you're planning on doing it is for that 2023-2024 school year. I just want to ask, in relation to this, does the minister have, and could you name or give a percentage of Manitoba students right now that have degrees through one of our post-secondary institutions or diplomas, and what percentage of them are currently working and involved in our economy? Like, is there a fundamental issue the minister is trying to address with this, where our university graduates aren't being, a part of our economic system here? Is there a fundamental gap the minister is looking to address when it comes to the number of students, graduates, failing to get jobs or something like that in Manitoba? Can you give us a percentage of Manitoba students with degrees that are working in Manitoba?
The Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We know there's a high percentage of graduates that are getting jobs, but we also know there are certain individuals who are not graduating. And why? Why? So direct from the report from the auditor, the Office of the Auditor General, it says here, that their audit objective was to determine whether an appropriate accountability framework was in place for the oversight of public post-secondary institutions by government. Given the significant amount of provincial funding, they chose to audit the processes that government had in place to support and to provide oversight of the financial and operational performance of Manitoba's 7 post-public post-secondary institutions. The 7 that include the Assiniboine Community College, otherwise known as ACC, Brandon University, Red River College, Université de Saint-Boniface, University College of the North, University of Manitoba, and the University of Winnipeg. The audit criteria reflects leading public sector accountability practices and common expectations for a strong accountability relationship between any minister and the board governed entities within their portfolio. A well-constructed and implemented accountability framework ensures overall accountability of institutions to government while empowering each institution its unique mandates and strategic priorities within the overall strategic objectives identified by government for the post-secondary education system as a whole. These consultations may include questions related to the following aspects of the post-secondary accountability framework: performance metric selection and definition, relationship between funding and performance, implementation, support, and timelines, monitoring and or reporting procedures, post-secondary accountability framework review processes, and timing. Virtual consultations will happen. The online survey will open. Our department will reach out to stakeholders for additional feedback as we develop the framework. The post-secondary accountability framework resulting from these consultations will take place. Post-secondary institutions branch will be reaching out to them shortly to arrange invitations for virtual consultation sessions. We will share more information about the consultations and propose a post-secondary framework closer to the events. If they have any questions, they can contact our Senior Director of Post-Secondary Institutions, and they can also copy our Director of Policy and Performance as well. These letters have been sent out to these respective stakeholders on behalf of my Deputy Minister. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
The Honourable Member for St. Vital.
Thank you. So obviously with the performance-based funding, just the idea of it, obviously there's going to be performance, you're going to measure performance, and therefore there has to be measurements. So can the minister outline how many different measurements there are going to be to measure performance and what those measurements are that the minister will be using to judge performance in order to create his performance-based funding model?
The Honourable Minister.
We still have to commence with the process and gather that information. It's called an information.
Minister, there was a bit of a break in the sound there. So would you be able to, I don't know if it's just audio on our end or what it was, but if you could start your answer again, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is that better?
Yes, yes, that's good.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As I was trying to say, we still have to gather information. It's an information gathering process. No decisions have been made. Why we have to commence the process first before I can provide that factual information to the member. The question that he was asking.
The Honourable Member for St. Vital.
Thank you. So moving on to a little bit about tuition and the revenue the province is getting from tuition. So in 2016-17, the amount of revenue the province received from tuition was $290 million. In the next year, it increased by $18 million. Then it increased by 31 million, then 25 million, then 25 million again, then 23 million. Then this year in 2022-2023 budget, it's increasing by 35 million. So this is the largest single year increase to tuition in Manitoba's history. $35 million increase from 290 million in 2016-17 up to $447 million today. That's a massive increase in just the last few years. And just this year alone, the largest in Manitoba's history, $35 million. So does the minister have concerns that more and more of the cost of post-secondary is being borne and put on the backs of students?
The Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just want to say that there are lots of factors when it comes to the members' questions, but lots of positive news as well. A lot of factors, part-time versus full-time students, international versus domestic. What I can tell you is that multiple factors that contribute to tuition revenues. Enrollment has increased. We've had a record number amount of students enrolling, including international students enrolling to our post-secondary institutions. That's why we're consulting with our post-secondary partners and faculty associations and student associations on how we can improve our post-secondary education as a whole. That's why we provided an opportunity for all Manitobans to participate through Engage MB, through the tuition fees and student fees policy survey. Like I said, my department is looking forward to responding to those responses that we received with Engage MB. And I'll revert back to international students again. They're here because of the low tuition costs. That's what I heard when I met with students from Bangladesh, students from Nigeria, students from India, students from China, students from Egypt. And it's very welcoming and gratifying to know that we are attracting international students to study in Manitoba, and many of them have stayed in Manitoba. It's very gratifying to know that we've had these positive results in terms of them being gainfully employed, whether it's through public employment or private employment. And our enrollment has increased despite the challenges of a pandemic. Enrollment is still up. The processing of provincial nominee program applications has gone up despite the challenges of a pandemic. So in terms of enrollment, we are constantly engaging with all the stakeholders in terms of improving the government programs and services that we can provide through the whole scope within my department, whether it's through student aid, whether it's through advanced education, whether it's through immigration. We want to ensure that we are there, boots on the ground, listening to our stakeholders through the leadership of my deputy minister and through the leadership of his division leaders as well. I'm very proud to say that they have been working tremendously hard despite the challenges of the pandemic. I know that we have gone through a lot together, and it's since taken over in the end of January. I'm very pleased of the progression of our department, and we will continue to ensure that we improve these issues, and in this case, enrollment. We know the numbers are growing, and we will continue to remain competitive while providing the quality of education that Manitobans have come to expect. We want students to study and stay in Manitoba because we are the home of hope. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
The Honorable Member for St. Vital.
Thank you. So I'd like to know, with that rise in tuition recently over the last few years, it means that there's obviously students are taking on a large portion of that burden for the cost of post-secondary. And as the minister mentioned, enrollment has increased, which also means that there's more students in school and more students for faculty to educate. And without that, with the rise of tuition being so high, but without the rise in government grant being as high, it means, and enrollment continuing to increase, it means that faculty are often kind of squeezed there, where they have more and more students enroll in their courses, and they don't have the same supports from a government grant so that they don't have enough resources to actually do the same level, perhaps that same level that they would if they had properly resourced programs, if the provincial government's grant was keeping up with at least the rate of inflation or the rate of tuition increase. And so, as the minister mentioned, enrollment increases, and it seems like faculty are being squeezed there by not having as much resources due to a lack of government funding. So is that the case? Is that the situation the minister sees happening right now, where faculty is being squeezed because of an increasing enrollment, as the minister said, and not as much funding increase to match?
The Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't know where the critic is getting his information from, because we as a department have not received that feedback. What I can tell you is that the former NDP government had 17 years to fight for post-secondary education in Manitoba, and they failed. We're proud of our record. I'm going to remind the member opposite that there are now more, as I said before, students than ever enrolled at our fine post-secondary institutions, receiving scholarships and bursaries to help offset the cost of their education so they can graduate in a timely manner. Almost 22,500 students received over $33 million in 2021, the most ever. And we continue to make investments in our post-secondary students and our institutions. When it comes to, solutions, back when they were in government, they had these supposed short-term solutions, which resulted in long-term pain for students now. So that's why our government is cleaning up the mess. We have a strong plan. We have a plan with our skills, talent, and knowledge strategy that focuses on aligning post-secondary education and training to anticipated skills needed for the labor market and the future, and fostering a culture of entrepreneurship and innovation while attracting and retaining talent in Manitoba. We want our students to get quality education, Mr. Chair, good employment, and opportunity to stay in Manitoba. We have a plan. And the information that the critic just asked me about, we have never heard that. Enrollment is up. That's a great thing for post-secondary institutions. That's a great thing for Manitoba, because we know that we have a high graduation rate. And the thing is, we are always going to constantly engage with our stakeholders. That's what we're doing now. And that's what we'll keep on doing, because we know that we have to adapt to this ongoing world of changes. We just went through a 2-year pandemic and slowly going to an endemic now. And we have to ensure that we have these solutions in place. And the only way we're going to do that is to have these routine consultations and engagement with our post-secondary partners, which goes all the way down to the students. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
The Honorable Member for St. Vital.
Thank you. I think the fact that the minister said that he's never heard the increasing difficulties that faculty members have faced over the recent years, including a strike, including 2 strikes, just goes to show how little the minister actually speaks with and consults with faculty members. But I'll move on to ask the minister about nurse training seats. Back in July 2021, the government announced close to 400 new nursing seats would be added over the next few years. Then in December, they were more specific and said that 259 nursing training seats would be starting this year. So can the minister be specific and tell us exactly how many nursing seats he anticipates would start, new nursing seats would start this year, as in this September 2022?
The Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What I could tell the member is that protecting the health and well-being of Manitobans is our number one priority. I want to thank Manitoba's nurses and healthcare providers for an essential part of our healthcare system. It's critical and support. It's critical that we support those who want to get into the nursing field by making sure that they have access to the education they need to do so. My wife's a nurse, and I value her work and her co-workers' work, especially during the pandemic. The nurses are they're very, very caring individuals. We know that nurses are in high demand across our province. This is why we are providing a paid work integrated learning experience for third and fourth year nursing students to help with healthcare needs in clinical settings. The initiative builds upon our commitment to train and hire more nurses while providing student nurses an opportunity to gain the skills and abilities needed for success. The member knows we are moving forward with the commitment. We have been to add a total of 400 new nursing training seats to fill the identified nursing vacancy gap as part of the multi-phase plan that started in the 2022, and budget 2022 provides funding for up to over 200 nursing seats to increase the supply of nurses into the Manitoba workforce. So we're going to continue to work with the institutions to get to 400 education seats over the next few years. This expansion of training seats will ensure that our healthcare system has a trained professional that it needs to provide quality care to Manitobans. I was happy a month and a half ago to be at Assiniboine Community College to make these announcements on more seats. Our department will continue to work with institutes to realize further new seats over the next few years to reach that target. I know the member, he is aware that this is not just a Manitoba specific issue when it comes to the nursing shortage. It's experienced from Canada and globally. I was up one night, we're up, sometimes we're working hard at night. I was up midnight and happened to be watching BBC Morning, which is obviously a couple hours early, and heard one of the news reports that there is a global shortage of nurses, 50,000 as a matter of fact. So it's not just a Manitoba issue, but we are reaching that target for 400 new seats. And the seat expansion directly relates to Pillar 2 of the Manitoba Skills, Talent, and Knowledge Strategy, labor market alignment, and student success. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
The Honorable Member for St. Vital.
So can the minister take us through institution by institution of how many will be of those new spots, specifically of that 259 new spots that he's previously mentioned would be starting this year? How many of those spots will be at each of our institutions in Manitoba, those spots that are to start this year in September, just 3 months from now?
The Honorable Minister.
So happy to respond to the member's question with regards to the breakdown of institutions of nursing seats. And I may add that more than $19.3 million in budget 2022 is to expand the nursing seat commitment, which the member voted against in the budget. So the breakdown is as follows. Assiniboine ACC, 55 seats. Brandon University, 32 seats. USB, 15 seats. University College of the North, 37 seats. University of Manitoba, 120 seats. We have a total of 259 seats. Again, we're happy again to let them know that $19.3 million is used to expand the nursing seat commitment, which his party voted against. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
The Honorable Member for St. Vital.
Thank you. I appreciate the minister providing that breakdown by institution. So that I think 120 at U of M, 55 at ACC, 37 at UCN, 32 at BU, and 15 at USB would make up the 259 seats. And all these seats are due to start this year in September, just confirming that from the minister. And when does he anticipate us getting to that 400 number? Would that be in the following school year, in the 2023-2024 school year? So just the two questions, confirming those numbers and then confirming, seeing if the minister anticipates whether the remaining 141 seats would be, to make up to that 400, would be open for the 2023-2024 school year.
The Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to let the member know that this is a 3-year phase plan. And I'll just repeat the number of nursing seats again per institution so that he has it accurately. Again, it's ACC 55, Brandon University 32, University College of the North 37, and the University of Manitoba 120. With when it comes to the breakdown of the year for the nursing seats for 2021-2022, 65 seats, 2022-2023, 184 seats, 2023-2024, 10 seats. Again, this is a 3-year phase plan, and we know that there are 141 seats remaining to get to that 400 seat nursing seat commitment. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
The Honorable Member for St. Vital.
So obviously, by creating these additional seats for nursing students, it also means that people who are currently working as nurses have to, support them through training and through, job shadowing and as part of their education. Does the minister foresee that this puts an extra additional strain on current nurses to have to be working with students to train them as part of their education? And what resources are putting into place so that it doesn't put extra burden on our healthcare system while these our current nurses are helping to educate these additional people in nurse training seats.
The Honorable Minister.
I'm sure the member, when we are in the chamber, has heard many times that in terms of strengthening healthcare, we've responded by investing $7.2 billion in healthcare. Again, something the member voted against. We know that protecting the health and well-being of Manitobans is the number one priority. Again, I'd like to thank the nurses and the healthcare providers who are an essential part of our healthcare system. It's critical that we support them to get into the nursing field, those who are interested in going to the nursing field, by making sure that they have access to the education and they need to do so. So as the Minister for Advanced Education, Skills and Immigration, I know that with respect to nursing seats and to ensure that we give the best quality education, and in this case, nursing education, that we are only going to function in a positive way by communicating with those stakeholders that are involved to ensure the success of nurses when they do graduate. And that is why we are investing more than $7.2 billion in healthcare. It is over $1 billion more than the previous government ever invested in healthcare. And we're ready to strengthen our healthcare system. But again, a lot of these questions can be directed to my hardworking colleague, the Minister of Health, when it comes to these questions with regards to health. And we know that nurses are a very important part of that equation. We know that there is a shortage of nurses globally. As I said, hearing the BBC news segment, BBC Morning, when I was up midnight, and it was 5 o'clock in the morning in the UK, in jolly old England, it was 50,000 nurses that they were short globally. And, we have to ensure that in terms of the process, that, we communicate with the post-secondary institutions to ensure that they're ready to take on more seats, which we have done here, because we're proud to say there's 259 seats that are allotted to these respective post-secondary institutions. And we're going to have to communicate with, obviously, with the regulatory bodies that are involved. We know that the healthcare occupations are a priority within this province, and we're going to have to compete with other jurisdictions. We're going to, from a global standpoint, in terms of advanced education, skills, and immigration, we have to be competitive. We have to be competitive on how to attract students coming to our province, not just to study, but to stay here. And with regards to specific occupations, in this case, nursing, we're going to have to improve ways to streamline how nurses, whether it's students or internationally educated nurses, come to this province, because we know there have been challenges. We know That's why we've been trying to clean up the mess of the previous government by implementing these programs, services, and processes in place so that we can streamline and have individuals gainfully employed in our province. It's very, very assuring that, we have a high enrollment, but we've got to ensure that we have high success when it comes to students graduating, and to ensure that we communicate with industry and our PSIs, those constant engagements. And that's why it's very, very important that we implement the Manitoba Skills, Talent, and Knowledge strategy, which provides a vision and a set of critical actions for our education, training, and immigrant systems in both the short and long term. Over the next 3 years, this vision will guide us to enhance the quality of life in our great province, and collaboration has been a key to our success in Manitoba. And we will work with our partners across the province, including industry, community, and educational institutions, as well as Indigenous leaders, communities, businesses, and organizations to build on our strengths here in our province. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
The Honourable Member for St. Vital.
Does the minister have a plan to actually prevent burnout from our current nurses as they help to educate our future nurses? We already have nurses burning out. So I want to know if the minister has a plan, or if the Minister of Health has shared that plan with the Minister of Advanced Education.
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Chair, we've always had a plan, unlike the NDP, who never had a plan. We have a plan to improve our advanced education, skills, and immigration, and you can read the document, the Manitoba Skills, Talent, and Knowledge strategy, to ensure.
Order. The hour being 12:30 p.m. Committee rise.